All right, hello guys. I'm here. And as you guys can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about season 6. This is definitely prompted by some stuff I've been seeing lately, okay? Especially a video that I saw from a movie reviewer that I quite heavily respect named Chandler, something like that. And so they rated season 6 as the best season of the entire show. And I just can't get behind that. It's not even close to me. Season 6 is not even in my top 5. So I wanted to talk about it. I want to go through every single episode of season 6. I want to look at them and go, is this some nostalgia people are having? Why is it that people really like season 6? And I think the conclusion I've come to, and we're going to kind of talk about it as we go through, especially the first episode, because I'm going to do a deep analysis of the first episode compared to the first episode of either season 1 or season 2, for instance. And when you think about season 6, if you don't go back and rewatch season 6, or you're more of a casual fan, I can see why you would really like season 6. Because what does season 6 really end on? It ends on the spectacle of the Battle of the Bastards. This one of the best shot, battles probably that we've ever seen in terms of just, it looks fantastic. You have the sept blowing up in episode 10. Like, the season goes out with a bang. But then when you think about what comes afterwards and how those things in season 6 don't really go anywhere, and also when you think about the logistics of what actually happens in season 6, things start to fall apart. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But, hello, Larissa. Hi, Matthew. How are you? Hi, Maz. Hi, Guccio. How are you? Season 6 was definitely the beginning of the end. Yeah, I think some other people would maybe look at season 5, and I definitely think season 5 is probably where I would say it started. And you can even look at other parts of the earlier seasons, like the Taisha reveal not being there. They cut certain things like Lady Stoneheart, and so some people would look even earlier than that, but I think, season 5, season 6 is really where it started to come to the forefront. And I will say, I personally like season 5 more than season 6. There are reasons for that, and maybe that's for another stream, because that would be a whole nother topic in and of itself. But I do want to talk about season 6. Season 6 has spectacle. Yes, that's what everybody remembers it for, right? It has these big moments in it, the Hodor stuff, or the Battle of the Bastards, the Cersei stuff in episode 10. It has the spectacle that makes it very memorable, so you remember it. But a lot of the stuff in that season is very forgettable. It's very bland. It's pretty awful. So I don't know. John finally grew a proper beard. Fair enough. Hi, Ryan. How are you? Season 6 was terrible. Some pretty set pieces, but the story fell apart and the characters stopped being themselves. I 100% agree. I enjoy a lot of the Cersei stuff. I enjoy the action. Is let down by the simple fact that there is so much omitted from the books, especially the characters. I agree. Agreed. Like, my ranking of the seasons is, in terms of the first 4, I almost think you can rank the first 4 in any order, right? Like, if you have season 3 is your favorite, season 2 is your favorite, season 1 or season 4 is your favorite, don't really think it matters. I think all the first 4 seasons are quality. I think it's at that point, it's almost personal preference on what you enjoy. For me, outside of that, though, I think it's season 5, season 6, season 7, season 8. But let's look at it. I want to go to the first episode of season 6. And so let's take a look. So season 6 starts off with the Red Woman episode. So let's get kind of a summary of where we are at the story in the end of season 5. So see, at the end of season 5, we see a couple major things. Jon dies, which is a huge moment, right? Because it really hyped up the community. It's where I started to get into the YouTube space of a Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, and getting into theories and stuff. This is where I got into kind of the scene in terms of watching content, in terms of, is Jon Snow going to come back and all that stuff. And it was really hyped up, and it kind of felt like a mystery type thing. And when you look back on it retrospectively, it's like, yeah, it's pretty obvious he was coming back. It kind of feels the same for the books. It kind of feels obvious he's coming back. But you have Jon Snow's death at the end of the season, so that's going to be where the next season starts. So already off to a great spot. That's a great part to start the season for season 6. You have a bit of the Cersei stuff after the Walk of Atonement, the shame stuff. You have Jaime coming back to King's Landing with Myrcella. Well, Myrcella's corpse, anyway. We see Daenerys getting, captured by the Dothraki. You see Bran, who is now with Bloodraven. Well, they don't actually say it's Bloodraven, but, And so we're left with a lot of, interesting moments to pick up on the story, right? Sansa and Theon, probably one of the biggest cliffhangers of season 5 in terms of they have basically jumped off of the wall, but how are they going to get away? How that's all going to go down? And so in the early part, and this season specifically focuses a lot on the North. And so we have a lot to kind of talk about in terms of what we're looking at from the North. But in terms of plots, the only plot that I'm really going to say throughout majority of this season is pretty well done in terms of the pacing, where our characters are building towards, is the King's Landing plot. Now, the beginning has a little bit of road bumps in terms of the execution of Myrcella's death and also Tristane's death. Both of those are done very sloppily, and they don't really make a whole lot of sense. So in those terms, not great, but after that, it's pretty consistent in terms of the quality level of King's Landing. So my criticism of season 6, I don't really mean the King's Landing plot. In terms of this season, I know going forward, right, we're going to see some issues with, okay, you have the High Sparrow killed. You blow up the Sept of Baelor. You would assume that would have repercussions, and they don't actually have any. And that's not really exactly an issue in season 6 because it happens at the very end. It's more a season 7 issue. But season 6, in terms of King's Landing, for the most part, I thought was actually pretty well done from what I can remember. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that. But, I do agree, Matthew. In terms of visuals and stuff like that, and even sound design, I always think Game of Thrones was top quality. It's the writing and the way the story goes that really made it fall apart. You're starting to break up unless it's my connection. Okay, we're good now. All right, sounds good. I wonder how they're going to do Bloodraven and Dunk and Egg if that isn't Bloodraven in the Game of Thrones show. That will be interesting. I'm not sure if it's that supposed to bleed Bloodraven. They never mention it, but if it's not, that would be interesting. Davos gets a lot to work with this season. I appreciated that. His scenes with Jon and Melisandre is awesome. Yeah, and that's not to say season 6 doesn't have good aspects to it at times, right? There are some moments where we see good writing. It's very far in between, right? There's some stuff where, we see Varys talking to a Red Priestess, and that whole scene's really good. That actually feels a lot like the old Varys. But then in the same breath, right, and we're going to see it, I believe it's either in the first episode or the second episode. I'm going to kind of go through a plot synopsis for each episode, but then we see Tyrion walking around with Varys, and they're making jokes because Tyrion can't speak the language well enough and is saying he wants to eat a lady's baby. And so this is the one thing I want to talk about in the first episode of season 6, because we're going to go through it, and there's a lot of stark differences you see in terms of the earlier seasons to this season. So right away, let's kind of look at the stuff happening in the North, given that that is the main focus of the season. So right off the bat in the North, we get some stuff with Ramsay and, looking at Miranda has died. And we get some decent stuff between Ramsay and his feelings for Miranda. Kind of goes into that deep kind of psychology of maybe Ramsay having a connection with another character that's kind of batshit crazy and cruel and stuff like that. It's a nice introduction into kind of reestablishing that Ramsay is kind of a psychopath and all of that. But one thing I really think takes a hit in this season is Roose Bolton. Roose Bolton is a character that seems very calculated, very smart, and in this season, he just falls flat. He openly talks about basically disinheriting Ramsay for his new child coming, and that's going to continue on in the next episode when he dies. But it's just so weird the way it's done. Roose comes off kind of as an idiot in this season, as he's worried about the Lannisters that are maybe going to come marching north if they find out Sansa has escaped them or they had Sansa. makes no sense. The Lannisters could not invade the North. That's not even possible. And they have way worse things going on at the time. None of that seems to make any sense as to what Roose should be caring about at this time. But it's just a very weird thing that happens. Again, just a lot of weird tension that they tried to build between Roose and Ramsay. And it doesn't really work. Because Roose should be a much smarter character and is acting out of character in this first episode and in the next episode as well, as he's kind of concluded. But not only that, we have this big issue in terms of Theon and Sansa, right? They are left in probably one of the most interesting positions out of Season 5. Season 5 sets them up to have a very interesting start to this season. Because in terms of where they are, Brienne made a choice in the last season to go after Stannis and kill Stannis. And so if this would have been an earlier season moment, what should have ended up happening is Brienne, who makes the choice to, avenge Renly and pay off the rest of that arc, which is good, right? That makes sense. Her finding Stannis within that entire battlefield without nobody killing her or anything is a little convoluted, but oh well. Building on to this season, though, it should not then be possible that Brienne is able to then save Sansa and Podrick when the Ramsays' men have hounds to chase them down and also are all mounted. It doesn't make any sense as to how Brienne gets there, and it also makes that decision from Season 5 that was set up feel pointless because she was able to achieve both. So already I feel like the North plotline, especially with the Boltons, kind of starts out pretty weak in terms of Season 5 did all this work to set up some amazing stuff to start this season, and it kind of didn't go anywhere. It just seems like a shoehorn moment where Brienne is able to do both hero moments and all of that. Even the fight scene itself is kind of whatever. It's like Brienne's against a bunch of people, and she ends up winning, which is like, okay, we knew she was going to win, but still. The scene just didn't really have a lot of tension to it and was not really a good start for the North. Talking about the other parts of the North, given the Wall is also a kind of huge focus, the Wall also doesn't really make much sense in this episode either to open up Season 6. In terms of what we get at the beginning is, okay, Alistair Thorne, all these people that betray Jon, they leave his body out in the snow. So it seems like they obviously want people to find that body to send a message. That's kind of what I gather. Okay, but then we see immediately after this, Thorne and, there's this Civil War looking thing going on, and then all of a sudden Thorne tells everybody that he killed Jon, which is wild to say, because given what we know, that should mean that Thorne then should be punishable by death, given that he killed another Night's Watchman. Very stupid logic here, but then it gets worse, because we also see that Davos and our, ragtag of misfits, like our 5 dudes that care about Jon, they barricade themselves in with Ghost, recovering Jon's body, and now all of a sudden Thorne gives a shit about Jon's body, which doesn't make any sense because he's the one that left it out there in the first place. So you have this whole plot here that's more or less just supposed to build up this tension towards Thorne versus Davos and Dolorous Edd and all that. Could have been done much easier. Davos and, let's just say our forces, they see that Jon's dead, and they just take his body and leave and then go find the wildlings and then come back. It's that simple. But they don't do that. For whatever reason, I don't know. And that's more or less the plot of this entire episode for the Jon plot, is that we just see some very convoluted stuff, more or less. And we also see Melisandre taking off her necklace in a scene that we just did not need to see. It also doesn't go anywhere in terms of this is never really answered as to what was going on. Why is Melisandre so old and all these things? That's never explored throughout the rest of the show. So it seems pointless that it's actually here to end off the episode. Or I don't know if it's actually the end of the episode, but it's towards the end. Didn't make any sense. Also, it's a plot hole given that we see earlier on in the show, Melisandre takes off her necklace and her ruby and she's fine. So that as well doesn't get explained. But yeah, that's the North. So let's get back to chat. See if anybody had anything they were saying. I I hope we get more of Bran and wins than we got from in season 6. Yeah, and that's the crazy part, is there's so many pointless scenes, Adam, in season 6. I just got done referencing a bunch of them, right? That we could have seen more of Bran, right? This should have been a big season for Bran. In terms of we lost a season with Bran. Bran is not in one of the seasons. This should have been a big season where we could have seen a lot of flashbacks, a lot of him learning and growing, instead of getting just a couple scenes here and there. And the scenes we get with Bran are pretty cool. I really enjoy Bran's scenes for the most part. But we just didn't get a lot of them. This is where they start to really fumble Tyrion's character. Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get to the next part of this episode in terms of the other plots going on. But that's a big part of it, right? Tyrion just has nothing to do in this season, and every decision he makes is bad or illogical. It's evident starting in season 5 that the showrunners shut George out and thought they could do better, disregarding source material to insert their stupid ideas. I agree. Thank you for the super chat, Aria. I appreciate that. Did you say anything? Let me see if I can respond to that. Did you see the hot D trailer? Yes, I actually did. If you guys are following the Instagram, you saw I put out a really funny post, but they actually dropped their trailer, the official trailer, right after Rings of Power did their trailer, and Rings of Power has not put out anything for season 2. And it's kind of wild that House of the Dragon, it seems like we're just sitting there just waiting. But yeah, it looked really good. We might do a reaction or maybe talk about House of the Dragon Friday. I wanted to process a little bit more, and also I really wanted to do this season 6, basically just destroy it, because I don't think it's good. Yeah, thank you, Arya, for that. I appreciate you as always. But hi, Muhammad, how are you? I made it to the hate fest. Yes, you are here. Stannis dying really takes out the Northern plot at the knees. Yeah, because in a lot of ways, it kind of felt logical that Stannis should pose at least some sort of threat to Roose and the Boltons. There should have been more there. It just felt like it was handled so quickly in season 5, and that's one of the big parts about season 5. But, you know. Also, Maegor did nothing wrong, of course. Jon reuniting with Sansa is nice, but I think the show forgot that in the book, Sansa couldn't stand Jon. But then again, seeing a family member after all she's been through would be nice regardless. So yeah, Ghost, I'm going to talk about that, and I believe it's episode 3. I think episode 3 is when they get reunited. But one thing I will note about that is, yeah, I think you think about all of the trauma that's gone on between Jon and Sansa and their own plot lines throughout the stories. These two reuniting, our first Starks to really reunite in the show, it's just going to be a wholesome moment, because this is someone she knows is a family member. It's someone that she can trust. She's been on the run. You know, in the show, she's been, used by Ramsay, Joffrey, Littlefinger, all these people. It's just a very good moment. And that's not a moment that I will complain about in season 6. I thought they handled that pretty well for the most part. And then, it starts getting worse, but, I think a lot of the beginning was trimming the fat with characters that didn't know what to do. Yeah, season 6, a lot of season 6 is about just taking out characters that we just don't know what to do with. That's what a lot of season 6 is about. Hi, Dakota. How are you? I agree, Gucci. I agree. That's one of the issues about later on in this season. Exactly, Maz. There was no repercussions in terms of Brienne's storyline. And the biggest part of it is, Brienne doesn't really do anything in season 5 until the very end. And so you're building up to this really awesome moment where there should be a payoff to it, and there isn't one. It just falls flat. Brienne is almost a character that's just fan service at the end of season 5. Hi, Arya. How are you? Also, it's crazy because as I said, hi, Arya, I got an email notification from I don't know if it was a question site or something that says, is Arya a psychopath? So that was kind of interesting. The more you recap it, the more trauma I remember. Yes. Unfortunately, season 6 is actually the first season that I remember watching it episode by episode, waiting for the episodes to come out. So this is a little bit more fresher in my mind. Yeah, and that's the thing with Thorne, right? He's a character that we don't particularly like that much, but he's also a character that we can understand. He's not an idiot, but he comes off as a complete moron in this episode, right? Go back to season 4. Thorne at the wall, the battle for the wall. He's actually quite understanding. He's not stupid. He understands that Jon is going to be very valuable in this fight and all those things. And so what happened there that we're now in season 6 and he's acting completely irrational? Time to open up the wine. Oh, yes. Wine. I like that. I was born in the North, and I always remember how they eviscerated the story, of course. I agree, Matthew. It's not explained. They basically just say, oh, he got out. That's it. I don't know. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, Melisandre can be a crone. Like, that's a decent idea, but you have to do something with it. You can't just put it out there and then have no plan of what to do with it. Did you hear about the leaks? Which leaks, Ghosts? I've kind of stayed away from them for the most part, but, you know. Season 7 was when I started having issues, but as always, I respect. Yeah, I respect your opinion as well, Arya. And I know people that like Season 6, right? My friends, like, I literally asked them this question for a reason. I asked them, like, after we'd watched Season 6 and we were going on to Season 7, I asked them, what'd you guys think of Season 6? And they really liked Season 6. And it's because of the last 2 episodes. I'm just saying. Do you think with the future Dunk and Egg show, it's good that show-only fans will finally see a protagonist who is a commoner and not a noble? Yes, I think seeing that flip of that will be really good. It's a new take on the world. It freshens it up a lot. It's payday, so you know what you have to do? No, Ashara will never, no, just no. Actually, I do talk about Ashara a little bit in my video that you already saw, but it's coming out Saturday on the Tower of Joy. I will probably just do a Q&A, Larissa, for 5K, but yeah. Yes, the magical Sansa army. Yes, Edwin. We'll get there. We'll get there. Don't you worry. I drink it, I know things. Yes, yes. It's definitely a quotable line, I will say. I have seen those leaks, Matthew, and I will say I actually knew those leaks from a while, and I had to sit on those because it was not public knowledge at the time that, like, that Nettles leak was, you know, a thing. And so I actually knew that knowledge from, you know, someone else, and I kind of just had to, like, sit here and not say anything about it because, like, somebody asked about it on a House of the Dragon stream, that exact thing, and I just couldn't say anything because it's like, you don't want to get in trouble for, like, leaking stuff that you can get sued over. So, but yeah. I will say, Matthew, he has his sources. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say. Well, Dakota, it's in there. That's all I'll say. All right. Moving on. So, let's talk about other stuff that happens in episode 1. Let's do some positive stuff. I want to talk about some positive stuff before we get to the bad. So, again, in King's Landing, I already talked about it, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but the way Myrcella dies is kind of whatever. Trystane dying is pretty stupid, the way that all goes down. It was just them needing to kill the character because the character needed to be wrapped up. They didn't know what to do with him, and all of that. So the good part of this episode is, one, the way Cersei and Jaime react to the death of Myrcella. In terms of Cersei, we're seeing her with actual joy, right? You know, as she hears that Myrcella is coming back and their ship is spotted, you actually see a glimpse of joy from Cersei. And Lena Headey does a fantastic job of acting, especially in this season. And so that's really great. That whole interaction is fantastic, where you see that, you know, realization that her daughter's dead, and that prophecy of Maggie the Frog is continuing in terms of both of her children have now died. All she has left is Tommen, and that's gonna kind of feast into the way, you know, she goes about with the High Sparrow and trying to protect her son, you know, and that desperation. There's also some other great stuff in terms of building up the threat of the High Sparrow more and more, in terms of, you know, Marjorie, you know, trying to just see Loras and all of that, you know, trying to manipulate the High Sparrow to get out of captivity. All that's pretty great. But yeah, I think the King's Landing stuff, outside of a couple things, is pretty good in this episode. Again, I think it's the one thing out of the entire season that holds up pretty well, in my opinion. Not going to talk about this one or this plot because you guys already should know, but everything that happens in Dorne in this season is pretty piss poor. We have Doran dying at the very beginning of the season, basically just saying, yeah, we know people didn't like the Dornish from season 5, so let's just kill him and have this plotline be done with. That whole that whole plot, there's so many plot holes in terms of things that happen, but we're not going to worry about it. That it was just bad. It's another reason to not like this season. The Dornish stuff is terrible. Continuation. We see Daenerys in the Dothraki Sea, and all of this is pretty like, yeah, I mean, it's not great, but Daenerys ends up meeting Khal Morro, and she reveals herself as Daenerys just to not get raped, more or less. And they're going to take her to Vaes Dothrak. That's pretty much all that happens. It's not anything crazy. It's just to establish where we're going. I think the dialogue could have been better. I really wish we would have, given Khal Morro more of an interesting character outside of just being, oh yeah, generic Dothraki guy that just is pretty much horrible. We see Dario and Jorah trying to find her through a ram chard from Drogon and the footsteps of the Dothraki, obviously. But yeah, that's all that really happens in this episode for Dany. Pretty straightforward. It's gonna get pretty much a lot worse as we go on, but for now, it's just fine. And this is where we get to the bad part. I mean, Marine is just terrible in this episode, and pretty much the entire season. It's just bad. Pretty much everything in Essos in this season is pretty piss poor, for the most part. We see Varys and Tyrion walking around the city of Marine. For some reason, they decide to put in Tyrion using Valyrian, and he says he's going to eat this woman's child because he's bad at speaking, which is like, what does this add? Like, what does this add to the episode? It adds nothing. Absolutely nothing. The point of the real scene, and again, this whole thing should have been edited out. This entire part of this episode where it's Varys and Tyrion walking around until they get to the part where Varys is like, I'm going to try to figure out who's doing this and all of that. Okay, fine. But one thing that you never noticed in the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones, and if you even want to compare the first episodes of seasons, season 1 and season 2, they're more fresh in my mind, so I'm going to use those. There was never a wasted scene or wasted dialogue in those first 2 seasons, especially in those opening episodes, because the opening episode is so important to understanding where our characters are going, setting up the plot, and getting the ball moving. You don't have time to be wasting your time just walking around talking about nothing. That's exactly what this episode is in a lot of ways. And this season does a lot of that, where it's just nothing's occurring, the plot's not being moved forward, or characters are not having any type of intellectual dialogue to whether it's moving their character along or it's making them critically think about something, or us, the audience, think about something. That just doesn't happen in this episode, especially with Tyrion and Varys. And so we get something where it's like, okay, they're going to start sending their spies over the city to figure out what's being done. But then we get even worse, because apparently all of Daenerys' ships in the harbor have been set aflame. You understand how incompetent the Unsullied and Daenerys' forces have to be for this to happen? Not only did one ship have to go up in fire, all of them did. Do you understand how long that would take? It's so illogical. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all for this to even happen. And yeah, so it just happens. The Marine plot, my guys, that's what we're going to get more of. Stuff that just happens and has no real meaning. But that leads us to the last plot of episode 1. And it's just Arya. It's Arya literally getting beat up in the street. That's all it is. I quite literally laughed the last time I watched this, because it's just, it adds nothing to the episode. There's nothing. All you can say is, oh, it's her trying to use her senses. That's it. That's all you can say comes from this, because that's all that happens. She just gets beat up by the waif. And it's supposed to maybe build up this conflict between the two characters, but the other part of it is the waif is not developed as a character at all. We have no motivation as to why the waif just hates Arya. There's nothing. And when you look at the way that that's resolved later on in the season, it reinforces that. This goes nowhere, right? So this is a pointless scene that doesn't need to even be here. It just wastes time. Bran is quite literally not even in this episode, and he's supposed to be a big part of this season. And we got Duran being killed for a sizable amount of time. We get Marine stuff that doesn't matter, and we get Arya stuff that doesn't matter. Are you beginning to understand why this season isn't good? There was one plot line out of all of the plot lines in this entire first episode that had any type of logic to it. But, yeah. Old Nan is old, Dakota. That's all I'm gonna say. Old. Or old. Is this the Arya blind season? Yes, Matthew. It's basically where Arya is blind for the first, like, 2-3 episodes, and then she has this whole plot where she's supposed to kill this actress lady, but she won't do it because she's Arya, and then she has to fight the waif, and then she comes back at the very end and kills Walder Frey. And the Freys, more or less. That's her arc. You see how weird that sounds just for me saying it? But I agree, Maz, on that being his entire personality. Seeing joy on Cersei's face makes me nervous. Yeah. But it's almost like that last part of Cersei's, like, humanity dying. Like, the real last nail is Tommen when he dies. But I will say, this is one of those breaking points for Cersei. I just wanted to come on here to say that I'm a big fan of the channel. I appreciate the way you talk and discuss the women and female characters in the book/show. Yes, I try to do my best. I try to do my best on all the characters. And all I will say is Rhaenyra is the GOAT. All that to that deny all that I can't even say it. I'm trying to say the quote. All that to deny that are my foes. I see I couldn't be an announcer in a Song of Ice and Fire. Like in terms of, like, you know, those people that, like, announce people into rooms, I'd fuck that up so easy. That's all I'm gonna say. The Dornish plot is probably the biggest tragedy. They had zero idea what to do with Dorne, which is crazy given it was literally right there. All they had to do was just look at the book, and man, you would have had to figure it out. Exactly. Lena Headey is a great actress, and so Cheeto, she just makes this season. This is her season, in my opinion. I was disappointed in Iron Island storyline. Yes, that is episode 2, and that's another bad one. But, yeah. I did not see that, Arya, but that is awesome. Yes, this is the season when Euron shows up. He is going to be showing up in the next episode. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say, yeah. If we don't get Winds or a Dream of Spring, what channel do you think would do the best job of writing it? Not do you think they should, but who would be the... I have no idea. I have no idea, Dakota. I have no idea. I think it would be a team of people. I think a team of people would be really good. Like, I think History of Westeros channel, I think they would be great at it, just in terms of, like, the amount of lore they know, keeping consistency. Preston Jacobs, Alt Shift X, you know, all the major major YouTubers. I think they would just come together to do great. Season 6 was weak, but the final 2 episodes are amazing. Had the best season finale of series run. I disagree. I in terms of, like, watching it once and not thinking about the logic of things or not thinking about what comes after, I can see your argument, but in terms of how that would ever live up to season 1 or season 2, the Battle of Blackwater and all that follows, season 3 with the Red Wedding, season 4 with all of the Tyrion stuff, Tywin's death, it's not even close to me. It's not even anywhere even near there. I did not know that, Arya, about the how our House of the Dragon teaser. Hi Ashley, how are you? Oh boy, anything season 8 related? I don't know. Quentin isn't dead? Well, that's a take. That is a take. I don't agree with that take, but it is a take. Yes, Robert from In Deep Geek would be great as well. All right, so let's get on to episode 2. So episode 2 moves us into the episode called Home. Again, another episode that focuses a lot on the North. A lot. But we actually do see some scenes I really do like. So one scene we actually end up seeing from this episode is the Bran Stark training with a 3-eyed raven. We get to see the young Starks. We get to see Benjen and Ned, Lyanna. All this is really cool, right? It's really cool to see these things, to see how these people interacted when they were younger. It's an introduction into Lyanna as a character. And so you look at the scene that we get with the Bran stuff and everything here. I really like it, right? It's a good kind of opening, getting into, don't linger in the past type stuff. I think there's some interesting stuff here with the Bran flashbacks that are going to continue, but I thought this was a good opener for Bran, and made us like ask some questions in terms of if Bran can go back in these memories and all that stuff, like what else could he find out? Right? Another interesting point that's already brought up here because it's going to get paid off later on in the season is Hodor. Hodor seems to be fine. And well, what happens there? So a lot that's kind of laid for foundations that we'll see later on in this season, which is all pretty good. And this is not the part where I have issues with it. When we get to the Bran stuff, it'll be the stuff that happens later on that I'll have issues with in terms of like, how does this all really connect? Like, if there is time travel and all these things, why is it never used? Why does it not go anywhere? That's where I'm going to have problems with Bran's storyline, but I think a good, introduction for the most part. King's Landing. King's Landing is amplified way better in this episode, even more than it was in the first episode. We get the showdown, right, between Jaime and the High Sparrow, because there's got to be some, something that happens there, right? Cersei gets paraded around, and so your natural thing is to see Jaime have a reaction to this. And we see the standoff where Jaime has the opportunity to kill the High Sparrow, but the High Sparrow is smart, right? He understands that, yes, Jaime could kill him, that's true, but Jaime would also die, and that wouldn't stop the movement, it would just enhance it. He would become a martyr. And so all that's really great because it builds the tension. How are we going to deal with this High Sparrow, this religious cult? There doesn't really seem to be an answer to that question because of Cersei's mistakes. And so I love a ton of that stuff. A lot of that stuff is good. Even the conflict between Tommen and Cersei is really good in this episode as well. Because Tommen is kind of being manipulated by the High Sparrow, and we see that going on. And so, it adds another level to the High Sparrow that he is actually a threat, right? He could take over the kingdoms basically using Tommen as a puppet. Kind of what Tywin was trying to do. Tywin was trying to rule through Tommen, more or less. And so that's going to build some of that paranoia of Cersei. But we also see that that kind of gets resolved here as well as Tommen goes to speak with Cersei. So it's a really great little mini arc within this episode that I actually do really like. So again, King's Landing to me, pretty good in this episode as well. We see a nice, little embrace, which is great. Seeing more of a human side of Cersei is always good because it humanizes the character, even though this is a character we don't particularly like in terms of, oh, she killed Ned, or she does these horrible actions. She basically got Tyrion almost killed. It is interesting to see that dynamic, right? And because you're put between two characters you don't really like, the High Sparrow and Cersei. And so it's kind of a lesser of two evils. Which one do you want to win? I like that, the way that D&D built that up. But then, unfortunately, we go back to Meereen. And what is there to say? I mean, any scene that we see Missandei, Grey Worm, and Tyrion talking, just nothing happens. This whole scene is about basically the dragons aren't eating, and so Tyrion's going to go unchain them because they're intelligent creatures, but yet they've never seen Tyrion. How would they know that Tyrion is a friend of their mother's? It's very convoluted. It's really just to get the dragons to be free, more or less. Like, Tyrion's story is really cool, and it's a story from the books, but it's just like, this seems like an awfully great risk just to release the dragons when it's like, we just got discussed basically saying that they would never hurt Missandei, right? The dragons are intelligent, they recognize her. Why wouldn't she just do it then? Why wouldn't she be the one that unlocks the dragons? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Some people might like this scene. I don't like Meereen in this episode at all. Again, Braavos is pretty much the same thing. Arya basically getting approached by the waif. doesn't go anywhere. The waif hits her again. It's just physical abuse for no reason. It doesn't really go anywhere. Basically, it's just multiple times they keep coming back to Arya, say her name, and they'll let her have her sight back, more or less. She doesn't agree, and then she gets her sight back because she's not going to be a beggar anymore. It's a lot of whatever. It doesn't really need to be here. I think like one scene between the episode 1 and 2 kind of establishes your point. But because Arya is a fan favorite, we get a ton of her in this episode. We just don't need it, unfortunately. So again, the Essos trend of if it's in Essos, it's not very good, just kind of continues. But yeah, let me look at chat, and then we'll talk about the Iron Islands and the Northern plot. I definitely agree, Ashley. I definitely agree, especially because Tommen was older in the show than he is in the book. In the book, that doesn't really seem as likely. I do agree, Ashley. What do you think about the new House of the Dragon promotional campaigns, i.e. the chessboard? I've liked everything that House of the Dragon has done in terms of their promotion. I think they've done a fantastic job building the excitement for the episodes. They've just done marketing perfectly, right? They've done a great job, in my opinion. Is there anything in House of the Dragon Season 2 that you're worried about in terms of changing things from the books that, like they did in Season 1? Pretty much everything with the North. I know there's going to be stuff with the White Walkers. I know there's going to be stuff trying to tie it into Aegon's prophecy and all that, and I just don't care. It doesn't fit. It's not part of what this season or show should be about. And so I just don't care. Big question, who cut Bran's hair in Season 6? Well, the Children of the Forest, of course. Yeah, I mean, Jon Con not being in, and Aegon specifically, that whole, basically, camp, really hurt the show. It really hurt the show because it felt like there was something that was missing, in my opinion. But yeah, In Deep Geek does a fantastic job. He is one of the people I got into the community the most with, and I've actually like messaged and whatnot. So he's a really cool guy. Yeah, the High Sparrow was pretty cool in the show. I agree. Tommen feels like Aenys and Joffrey was another Maegor. Joffrey is nowhere comparable to Maegor. That's all I'm gonna say. Maegor is like 10 times cooler than Joffrey. I'm just saying, well, people that bring in Ashara stuff, you guys know what you're doing, okay? You know you're trying to get a rise out of me, and so, you know. Can you explain the Rhaenyra love? Okay, all right. All right, here we go. Here we go. So, when I first read Fire and Blood, Rhaenyra was my favorite character. And so I really liked Rhaenyra's camp. I like the Dance of the Dragons time period of Fire and Blood it's easily the best part of the book. And so I just enjoy that storyline. I like the dynamic of Rhaenyra. I liked how Rhaenyra, in a lot of ways, is a reflection of characters from A Song of Ice and Fire. She's like the perfect mix of a Catelyn, Cersei. There's another character I'm looking for, but I can't think of them right now. But she's a very interesting character in terms of her complexities, right? And how she goes about doing things during the war and pre-war and all of that. I like this descent of being the character that's like, you know, the realm's delight down to something not so good. I like that idea. And then, so when the show did the character of Rhaenyra, the actress that plays Rhaenyra, Millie, the younger Rhaenyra, is just very attractive. What can I say? And so, it's just a win-win. Oh, boy. I agree, Ghost. I agree. Ashley, you're just jealous. That's fine. Dakota, what can I say? N plus A is just wrong. And I mean, I don't respect lies. Um, if Tommen was a legit Baratheon, would the other kids' legitimacy be called into question? Well, I don't know how that would work, because if Tommen was a legit Baratheon, he would look very different than the other two, than Myrcella and also Joffrey. So they'd still be called into it. It'd even be more obvious. Like it'd be like Rhaenyra's kids, where it's like her first three look a certain way, and then the next ones don't look anything like them. So, um, definitely possible, Arya. Also, yeah, Indie Geek's voice is perfect to go to sleep to, and that's not an insult. Some people take that as an insult. He's very soothing. Right? It's like he has a very relaxing voice. I agree though, Arya. I want this is my issue. This is my biggest issue. One of my biggest issues with season 1. Rhaenyra was not the Rhaenyra of the books. The Rhaenyra of the books was not the hero. She was not like the character. She wasn't the Daenerys, right? She wasn't that character. She was a character that made very questionable decisions in terms of like morality and stuff. So, you know, I will come visit Australia, Larissa, but I've been told you guys have like big snakes over there, and that scares me. I don't know. Season 6 had the best finale? No, not even close. Not even close. It's good, but it's not even close. Like season 1, even season 1. King of the North, Daenerys having the dragons, all that by itself already makes it better. Yes, people can believe that Cersei and Jaime are Targaryens, but you cannot believe Ned and Ashara. Sorry. The true delight of the realm is Rhaenys. I don't know about that one. Viserys II is a pretty cool guy. I won't lie. Yes, people can believe that Quentin is alive. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I agree, Arya. The Winds of Winter was to troll us. I agree. We have the most venomous spiders, and yes, many bad things. I'm okay with spiders. Spiders are okay. But snakes? Nope. Nope. No spiders. Spiders are bad. Not spiders, snakes. Snakes are bad. All right. I guess let's continue. So we're going to just do this quick. All right. So the Ironborn stuff, we get actually a pretty solid start to the Ironborn stuff in terms of season 6. We get this argument about the current war effort, what's going on between Greyjoy's occupation of the North, right? In terms of Moat Caelan's fallen, Deepwood Motte has been taken, but Balon Greyjoy wants to continue the war effort, and then it just comes off as being stupid. But Asha, or Yara in the show, stupid. But she's basically like, this is stupid. We need to make peace and all that stuff. Kind of what we see in the book. And so it's kind of setting up the different ideologies and kind of reintroducing us into these characters once again. And all that's great, right? We're setting up towards something. And then immediately we just see a pretty whatever scene. It's not the worst scene that Euron is in. It's actually probably it's probably his best scene that Euron's in. It kind of gives off at least some mystique, some like foreboding, as he kills his brother Balon, which is just like, it's all right. It's like, it could have been so much cooler. I don't really think you actually needed to see Balon dying. I talked about this in my Euron video last week, but you didn't need to see this because it kind of takes away some of that mystery of the character of Euron. So I don't think the scene was needed, but I also don't think it was the worst thing on the world. But yeah, and we also see Balon's funeral, and we have Aeron, who he basically never shows up in the show, but it's him and Asha talking, and basically Aeron's a dick and is like, yeah, no, we're gonna have a Kingsmoot because you're a woman. But the problem is this is not at all the Aaron from the book at all. Aaron just comes off as a complete asshole who has no motivations whatsoever, outside of he just doesn't want a woman on the throne. But who is the alternative? The only alternative that we know of is Euron. Victarion doesn't exist in this canon. So what is Aaron's motivation? Like, that's the thing, is like, you have to basically suspend your belief that this is not the Aaron we know, that he's willing to put Euron on the throne over Asha. Or Yara, sorry. It's just, it's whatever. It could have been done so much better. They took one of the best plot lines from Feast for Crows, and they've kind of just butchered it. But whatever. You know. So, at the wall, basically all we see is Alistair Thorne and the dicks of the wall are basically trying to break in to the room that Jon's in. Why they haven't done this already, I have no idea. Who cares if they kill Davos? Stannis is dead. Davos does not matter. It just does not matter. Okay? Whatever. They stall long enough until the wildlings come back, and they all have their little piece, and Ollie and Thorne and all the boys, they're put in the ice cells. The rest of this episode then basically follows them trying to resurrect Jon, which is fine, right? They do an okay job of this, right? I think this is handled pretty decently. Mel has seen, and where we can infer that she learned more or less how Thoros was bringing back Beric and all of that. So, you know, this is kind of like this last Hail Mary. But what I like about Mel in this episode specifically is we can tell there's this loss of confidence, right? She believed that Stannis, you know, was Azor Ahai, this person that was supposed to defeat the others, and this person that was going to win in the Battle of Winterfell, and he lost. That's shaken her. It's actually, you know, destroyed her character a little bit. Like, she is someone that is actually distraught over this. And even Jon Snow as well, right? Because Jon Snow, she had visions that he was going to be fighting Winterfell as well. And so when all this happens, it kind of leaves her in a state of loss, of emptiness. She doesn't know where to go. And so that should refocus the character in terms of when Jon Snow comes back, there should be something that really should be explored between the two characters that, unfortunately, we're not going to get. But obviously, we see this ritual happen, they all leave, and we get Jon Snow is back. And that's how the episode ends. So, yeah, episode 2 is slightly better than episode 1, right? There's definitely not as much fuckery going on. There's some good stuff in this episode. There's also a lot of bad stuff in this episode. Again, if it's in Essos, it's bad. It's the easiest way to explore season 6. If it's in Essos, it's bad. If it's in the north or the wall, it's also bad. Oh, wait, I forgot to talk about something else in the north. Hold on. We aren't done. Unfortunately, Roose Bolton also goes out in this episode. And he goes out in probably the stupidest way known to mankind. He flaunts around his new son after threatening Ramsay of his position. He then allows Ramsay to come up and hug him, and Ramsay has a knife in his hand, and Roose does not see it. What? Roose, the guy who was, you know, helped orchestrate the Red Wedding, who is a cold, calculating guy, he's been built up the whole show, dies like a little bitch. I forgot about that. I forgot about this point, and this kind of drags this episode down again. And then we have, again, whatever scene. It's just a whatever scene. We have one counterbalance to this in the Brienne storyline, where Theon and Sansa have a nice little goodbye, and that's pretty cool. Theon's gonna go home to the Iron Islands. All right, and that's it. That's it for episode 2. I did not think this was going to go as long as it did. Holy cow! Larissa gifted 5 members and I didn't even know. Holy cow. Thank you, Larissa. Who got the memberships? Oh my. Matthew's become a member. Oh my. Oh my. That is craziness going on right now. But welcome new members. You guys will see videos early. Well, here's the thing, Larissa. You caught me off guard, okay? But because I don't have my audio on, like I don't have my headset on, so I can't hear when alerts and stuff go off. But thank you, Larissa. I appreciate you a lot. You know that. But, All right, let me go all the way back up here. This is the problem with trying to do like video style streams and all that. Also, hi Jim, how are you? Queen or King Quentin the Crispy will return to claim his throne. Cersei blowing up the Sept, Arya killing the Frey, Jon's named King of the North, and is finally revealed to be Lyanna's son. Dany finally sets sail to Westeros. Bad tick. I disagree. Arya killing the Freys, or I guess Walder. It just feels like she teleported across Westeros. It's not a bad scene, but whatever. Jon named King of the North is definitely a solid scene, especially the transition going from baby Jon to his face. Definitely a good scene. Cersei blowing up the Sept is definitely good. Daenerys finally setting sail to Westeros is something that was needed to happen. Based upon her whole season being awful, I just don't have an emotional tie into it. But yeah, season 6 is, I mean, this is not me saying that season 6 has a bad ending. It has, like, the last episode is definitely the best episode of this season. But in terms of comparing it to other seasons that wrap up their whole season better, that have logical places that they're ending and things like that, it's not comparable, right? Like, it's just not. I agree, Matthew. Euron being a little bitch is unfortunate. Hopefully they will do Dalton Greyjoy better. It probably was Maz. I just don't remember because we barely ever see him. Your Jon Snow show video made me more hopeful about the future of a Song of Ice and Fire universe in terms of, yeah, I think they've been doing a great job. I think HBO has been doing a fantastic job in terms of realizing what shows are not going to do well, changing it, giving us stuff that is actually going to build up this universe. Also, my hair is a mess, so I'm sorry. It's hilarious that Matthew now has the Greyjoy symbol next to him. That's funny. Make the chat more green. Oh no, Larissa. Now I know what you're doing. Oh no. Yeah, again, this is the thing, right? Asha is the most Ironborn. She is the best candidate of the person to be in charge, but because she's a woman, she's held back, unfortunately. Yes, that's another thing. It's like Davos should go see his family and all that stuff. Proceeds to never do that ever again in the entirety of the show. I have no idea why Davos didn't go back to his family. I have no idea. Did Grease say fuckery? I wasn't paying. Yes, I did say that. I'm off the leash when I start like hating on things. Larissa always gets praise because she's the GOAT. Absolute GOAT. In later seasons, they had Star Trek transporter tech. It is known. It is known. As the Dothraki say, it is known. Delroy, not everybody can survive. Rhaenys is dead. That's all I'm saying. All right. Let's get into it. I don't know how much longer this stream's going to be. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, but that's what happens when I start, you know, saying fuckery and such. So let's move on to episode 3, Oathbreaker. Oh boy. So Jon Snow has come back, and this is by far, I think, the most disappointing part of season 6 for me. Jon Snow comes back. He's had a death experience, right? He's experienced death. What is one of the most biggest mysteries of life is what comes after life, like what comes after death, right? It's basically mentioned once and then never mentioned ever again. It's like, do you understand? Like, and this is the thing, right? Jon should be some sort of changed character. He should have something that he makes him change completely how he views the world, and that doesn't happen. And so the stuff at the wall, it's like some of it is definitely not bad, right? But we just don't get enough of it. We don't get Melisandre asking more into Jon and what happened. And I like that Melisandre latches onto Jon because she should, right? Mel has brought him back to life. She is now kind of restored somewhat of her faith. We don't see enough of it. We don't get to understand what Jon thinks about, oh, there's nothing after death, or Melisandre's realization that there's nothing after death. All these things, like, we don't get any of that realization. And you think Melisandre would be even more interested in it, because it seems as though she's been keeping herself alive to avoid death specifically. So this would come as a huge shock to her. But we don't get any of that. Right? It's just craziness. But we end up seeing Jon, running into some of the old pals. We get another dick joke with Tormund. It's just like, whatever, don't care. We see him executing the traitors, which is, it's pretty solid. Nothing really to say here. It's just the natural progression of where that was going. And he says he's going to be leaving the Watch. So, kind of natural where we went with that. I don't think it's terrible, right? I don't think any of that is terrible quality. I just think that there's so much more they could have done with this. And when we get to, more further into these episodes, before we get to the battle, the Bastards, and there's just so much filler. There's not much happening, with the character of Jon Snow. This is stuff I'm going to point to. We should have expanded this stuff. That right there alone, Jon coming back from death, was enough to have an entire season's worth of content. And that's what I find so wild, is that we didn't get that. There isn't, none of this is really brought up ever again, right? There's little joke moments, like later on when Jon meets Daenerys, that, oh, he came back from death, and, he got stabbed so many times, but it's just hollow. There's nothing that tries to even expand what actually happened. So, again, we see the worst plot of Sam's, and it's just him on a ship, throwing up, all that type of stuff. Not particularly great. But Sam does decide to take Gilly and little Sam to Hornhill. Now, that is where I think some of this is going to get very interesting. Once we get to the interactions with Randall Tarly and stuff, that's where it gets very interesting. But a lot of this stuff is not the best. Right? Like, a lot of this stuff in this episode for Sam, it's not good. I really don't think we needed as much of it as we did. I think we could have gotten more of it where we just almost skipped to Sam and Gilly being at Hornhill, given they're not in the first two episodes. If there was my idea, they wouldn't have been in this episode either. It makes sense. We had them out of multiple episodes. That's that travel time that we talk about. You see, like, in the early seasons of Game of Thrones. But what we also see, which I really enjoy in this episode, because I used a lot of this footage and some videos this week, but Bran has another vision of the past. And again, it seems like he's almost getting stuck in the past, learning from things and what the Three-Eyed Raven is trying to show him. But we actually get to see the Tower of Joy stuff that for book readers, we actually get to see in the first book with Ned dreaming about it. But we get to see all of this through Bran's POV. And for, a show viewer, if you've never watched this or didn't know any of the information of this would have been a really cool scene, and I think it's really cool regardless. Choreography is fantastic. One thing I will say that's a massive disappointment in terms of lore accuracy: why is Arthur Dayne dual wielding? He has Dawn. I don't understand that part of it, but the actual fight choreography, the way everything looks, is fantastic. The payoff of what actually happened here, again, it's the show's canon. We don't know exactly what happened in the books, but this could have been what happened. But then we also get introduced into something that's even more interesting. Bran seems to be able to get the attention of his father, Ned. That's significant because that foreshadows that Bran can interact with the past, setting up things to come for the future. So actually, once again, I really like a lot about what Bran gives us in this episode. I think he has one of the cooler scenes of the entire season. I just wish we got more of Bran. I can't believe I'm saying that, but compared to what else we're getting in this season in terms of a lot of the filler in the North, again, the Sam and Gilly stuff, that didn't really feel that necessary in this episode. The Arya stuff, I would have rather we get more Bran. I can't believe I'm saying that though. Again, we see some great stuff in King's Landing in terms of Qyburn starting to get Varys' spies or the little birds. We see a lot of, small council meetings, some interesting stuff going on. This dynamic between, Kevin, Olenna, Mace, all these people. Really like a lot of this. I like a lot of what we get to see here in King's Landing. But yeah. But it also, we get to see Tommen and the High Sparrow, where we're getting to see that dynamic of how the High Sparrow slowly is starting to take Tommen away from Cersei and all of that. But I think all that's really good. I think a lot of the stuff we get in King's Landing, the build-up of what we're going to see in the future episodes was really, really well done here in this episode. And that's where we're going to take a break here, because we got Marine, we got all the Essos stuff left. And I am not looking forward to that at all. So we're gonna pick pause. We're gonna take a pause. Let me read chat here. What do we got? Also, bye, Maz. Have a good one. They could have at least given Jon a white streak in his hair after coming back. That would have been really cool. Hi, Sterling. How are you? Dakota, you are the GOAT. I will say. I give you a lot of crap, but Jon's character assassination started in earlier seasons and was completed in this season. I agree. Right? Like, think about this. If you're a person and you die and there's nothing. It's just black. There's nothing happening. There's no afterlife. There's just nothing. And you come back from that experience. Think about how traumatic that would feel, right? Like, what it would make you recontextualize life. What is it all about, right? Like, that's something that should have plagued the character at Jon, but it just didn't. Oh boy, I don't want it. Oh god. Ashley is Grease's favorite. Ashley is one of my favorites. I won't deny that. Ashley is one of my favorites. She is one of my favorites. She's the GOAT mod. She's always in the streams. She's banned countless bots. We haven't had bot problems in a while, so that's pretty cool. But she is the GOAT. She is the GOAT, 100%. I agree, Matthew. I agree. 0 out of 10, no Battle of the Green Fork. I agree. We should have just said screw season 6 and gotten a Battle of the Green Fork episode. That'd been cool. That would have been pretty cool. Agreed. That's one thing I tried to reference because, we're at that part in the Robert's Rebellion where it's the Tower of Joy. The problem with trying to come up with any other textual evidence against what Ned's dream is there isn't any. There aren't any other sources of the event. All we have to go off of is the historical text in terms of what secondhand sources, like the Maesters, what they wrote down of the event, and Ned's dream. We haven't met Howland yet. So we really just have to go off the stream, right? And we can try to pick and choose what maybe didn't happen, what did happen. But also the other part of it is when Ned wakes up, he doesn't think about the dream and go, wait, that's not what happened. That's a weird dream. That's different than what happened. So, yeah, I think that's something that it's hard to tell what may have happened, what didn't happen. Uh, 31 in chat, 14 likes. Fix it, people. That's right, Dakota. You get on them. You get on them. Also, I'm glad to see you guys are interested in my season 6 analysis. You're on. I 100% agree. Season 5 is better than season 6. 100%. Hi, really not sure. How are you? The Sansa / Jon reunion being the only happy Stark moment after years of waiting for that makes me like the season. Yeah, that's one of the better moments of the season, right? That interaction, something we've been waiting for a long time, and it feels natural. I agree. Of course, Ashley. Of course, you're always here. You're always supporting me. You're always here. We may not disagree on everything, but yeah, you're still the good. You're better than Matthew. The Matthew, you know which Matthew. Matthew Crooks. The Matthew Mod, he's been slacking. Now, maybe because he's, in the military and, but still. you know. In this episode, we also see some stuff about the one woman that basically helped kill that Unsullied in the last season. And all of this is pretty well done. This is handled really well. It feels like OG Varys, where he's kind of threatening her, but not also at the same time not. He's trying to give her a good outcome. All that's really good, right? I really like that scene of Varys. So for once, we get some good Essos stuff, but then we are immediately followed up with just terrible writing. I mean, we see Tyrion, Missandei, and Grey Worm together, and I'm just like, I'd rather shoot my brains out. Like, drinking games with those three, please shoot me. Please shoot me. But Varys returns and informs them that it's basically all the slavers. They're in control of the Sons of the Harpy, more or less, which is like, yes, but no. Like, I think that is kind of the case in the books as well, that yes, they are being kind of funded by the slavers, but it goes deeper than that. It's not just because of the slavers. It's because these people actually disagree with what Daenerys is doing. She's overturning their entire society. And so part of it is that, but I think part of it is other stuff that they just kind of looped into three figureheads of the slavers and said, yeah, this is the Sons of the Harpy. It's not that simple. And so that's one thing I really dislike about this entire season, is that Daenerys leaves and there's nobody really left in charge of Meereen, and there's no conclusion to that, right? Like, what's to stop another outrising of people that want to enslave the people of Meereen? There isn't anything to stop that. Like, maybe Dario is left behind, but Dario's a sellsword who's just now been dumped. Who knows what the fuck he's gonna do, being in control of an entire city? Like, that's one of the parts that makes the season really, really bad. But basically the end of this is that Tyrion just wants a meeting with the slavers, and that's gonna go nowhere in the next episode or whatnot. But you know, Daenerys invades Dothrak, so a bit of time seems to have passed, but she's basically thrown into the Dosh Khaleen. All of this is fine, right? I don't think Daenerys' storyline is really that bad. I actually think it ties well into kind of her first season arc, where this was an outcome that was possible. I think it's really the wrapping up of this arc that's the bad part of it. It's just not that exciting. You know, it's that build up to a moment that isn't that great, really. But yeah, it is what it is. So that gets us to Bravos. And again, Arya still being blind, so I was mistaken by that. She's still blind in episode 3. She's still getting beat the shit out of. But she actually starts to win against the wave, which is just like, okay, that's cool. I guess Arya is starting to get better at fighting, blind. She's getting better with her senses, I guess, is what we can say, which is the weirdest training to show us, because it's going to really have almost no effect on her going forward. We don't ever really see Arya being an assassin. So this training doesn't really go anywhere. It's kind of pointless. Like, what we really should be seeing is Arya, based upon what the show does with the characters, like, just fighting, like, just learning how to be a swordsman, more or less. Like, a lot of this kind of goes nowhere, really, but, you know. We see the Waif interrogating Arya about the people on her list, which it's a good reminder, right? It's a good reminder of other people on there, because, again, Walder Frey will be killed by the end of the season, so it is something that's, you know, nice to bring back up. But a lot of this just doesn't really go anywhere, right? Like, eventually her sight is restored at the end of this episode, but it already feels like the first 3 episodes, Arya has been wasted. Nothing has really progressed with her character, her story. Nothing's made you think about what's going on with the character of Arya. There's no real tension being built here. And so Arya's whole journey so far, right? And given that this is a 10-episode season, we're 30% through the show already and nothing's happened. Now, put that in perspective of earlier seasons. That just doesn't happen, right? There's never 3 episodes where that character's in all 3 episodes and almost nothing happens. Just want to put that in perspective. But in terms of the North as well, not really a lot going on. We actually have a pretty decent introduction of Small John Umber. He actually comes off pretty menacingly as he delivers Rickon back into the story, and also has killed his direwolf Shaggy Wolf, or Shaggy Dog. I don't know why I said Shaggy Wolf. What a weird thing to say. But yeah, there's some like interesting stuff there. Good introduction there. But yeah, we also see Osha returning to the story, which is like, honestly, I think I'd rather have just Osha have just disappeared and we never knew what happened to her. Like, it's better than what we actually get. But yeah, that is all of episode 3. So that'll get us in episode 4. I do think we're probably going to pick up with this on next week. We'll probably pick up on this because this is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. There's just a lot I want to talk about in this season. But yeah, it is, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely think we're gonna get the Tower of Joy stuff in the next book. I think John's parentage, for whatever it will be, whoever his parents are, they will be released in the next one. I agree, Dakota. I saw what you said. I agree. Shit writing, Matthew. I agree. After reading the books and listening to the audio, well, God, reading is tough. After reading the books and listening to the audiobooks, so many times the show became unwatchable at a certain point. I agree. I think like after season 4, the show is almost unwatchable for me now. Like I'm doing a rewatch of the early seasons right now. I'm at the very beginning of season 2, and I'm gonna stop after season 4. Like season 5, I can still find elements of the show that feel like Game of Thrones. Season 5 still somewhat, certain plot lines feel like Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire. Season 6 doesn't really feel like that at all, right? Like it doesn't, outside of like Cersei, it doesn't feel like that whatsoever. Yeah, Missandei, I don't know why you spell it like that. It's so funny. But yeah, she's not great, especially in the show. I agree, King. Agreed, Edwin. I agree. Let's be honest. Arya deserved it, probably. Where's the bloody maester? Oh God, Boris. No maesters. They fuck things up and they tell you wrong things. You know, that's what happens when you can't read. That's all I'm saying. Dakota. You know what's funny? I pictured this a lot. If Winds of Winter comes out, okay, and it's R+L, I will 100% Fortnite. I will do a YouTube short of Fortnite dancing on N+A supporters. I will 100% do it. I have no shame. The amount of people that have left me the most disgusting comments on any reaction to Order of the Green Hands N+A theory. All I'm saying is the worst of the Song of Ice and Fire community lies in the Ned and Shara community. That's all I'm saying. Season 5 still has good dialogue, but from season 5, yeah, that's exactly my point you're on. Like, season 5 still holds some part of a Game of Thrones, and it feels like there's consequences to things, but that's not always true in season 5, unfortunately. I agree. Missandei was not great in the show. Also, JJ, thank you for subscribing at some point during the stream. Obata, thank you for subscribing at some point during the stream. But yeah. Also, that is probably where we're going to end the stream, guys. So I hope you all enjoyed. We will be back doing a part 2 probably next week. Because this is a project I want to do. I enjoy kind of breaking down this season specifically because I think it's one of the most polarizing of the community. But I hope you guys all enjoyed the stream. And we'll be back Friday with, I don't know what the stream's going to be yet Friday, but I am excited to